experience, and leadership to this important conversation. What is particularly significant about this room is the diversity of voices represented here today. We have leaders and practitioners from government institutions responsible for designing and implementing policies, private sector leaders who continue to drive innovation and strengthen systems, civil society actors who closest to community and accountable structures, and our distinguished alumni team or alumni network, individuals who continue to lead change across sectors and institutions. The foundation itself was established with a conviction that transformational leadership, strong institution, and collaborative partnership are central to national development. Over the years, this conviction has shaped our strategic direction and the work we choose to invest in. Through our leadership development initiatives, we have invested over £2.9 million in developing leaders. Supported hundreds of public servants through structured leadership programs, developing leaders and training initiatives. We have also supported hundreds of public sector leaders through structured leadership alongside reform and champions in developing leaders, institutions, and public sector leaders through our alumni network in particular. We have continued to support reform initiations and practical reforms through our alumni network in particular. We have continued to support, but our experience has also shown us something very important. Reform challenges are rarely caused by a shortage of ideas or good intentions. Most often, these barriers are deeper and more complex. So we are talking about leadership transitions, we're talking about institutional constraints, accountability gaps, fragmented partnerships, competing priorities, and the realities of implementation. The journey so far has led us to where we are today, carefully identifying these barriers that stand in the way of successful reforms, creating the platform for honest engagement as we would have today, and also bringing together diverse stakeholders to interrogate these challenges and collectively shape the practical solutions. This roundtable is not merely another event on the conference agenda. It's a part of a broader effort to move from supporting reforms to strengthening the conditions that allow these reforms to succeed. Distinguished participants, I believe we can all agree on one thing. The question before us is no longer whether reform is needed. Nigerian development journey has repeatedly demonstrated the necessity of reforms across our institutions and systems. The more difficult questions, and perhaps the most important one, is why is reform often so difficult to sustain, and what practical conditions enable reform efforts to succeed? So today, we are not here to debate whether reform is needed. We are here to confront why it is hard and what we can all do to help. This distinction matters because our objective today is not to produce another conversation that ends with broad agreement and limited actions. Our objective is to interrogate realities, surface practical insights, and identify pathways to improve reform outcomes. To mention a few guiding principles for our engagement and what has been learned so far. Third, we invite honest and constructive dialogue. We want candid conversations about the barriers, the constraints, and the realities, recognizing that understanding this problem clearly is often the first step towards solving them. Fourth, we ask that there be no attribution without permission. Participants should feel free, comfortable sharing their insights openly within a trusted environment. And finally, we may spend some time identifying these challenges, we ask that our discussion remains solution-oriented. This aim is not simply to describe the problem, but to identify those practical opportunities for progress going forward. By way of structure, today's roundtable will begin with a discussion on the current reform landscape and issues around leadership and accountability. We will then introduce elements of the reform playbook and explore broader themes around citizen partnerships, narrative building, and the wider reform ecosystem. We will conclude these commitments with practical next steps and move us beyond the discussion to an action. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the ultimate purpose of this gathering today is simple but important: to strengthen the success of public sector reforms for the benefit of citizens and the future of our nation. If we leave this room with stronger partnerships, clearer insights, and tangible commitment towards advancing reforms efforts, then we would have achieved something tangible. Thank you once again for being here, and we look forward to a rich and productive engagement. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, James, for that elaborate welcome remark. So we'll dive right into the meat of it. Like my colleague said, we have 4 sections. The first section, we'll talk about the reform landscape in Nigeria, and then we'll go forward to briefly introducing what we've been working on for quite a while based on our work with many of you here, public servants. We've been trying to put together a Nigeria public sector reform playbook, which we want to sample in this conversation and get your thoughts and feedback on. And then we move forward into building the reform ecosystem around what challenges we will identify, and then, like he said, commitments and next steps. So our objectives are first to foster an honest cross-sector dialogue. Like he said, we have private sector here, we have public sector, we have the CSOs in the room. We want to surface practical strategies to overcoming the reform barriers that we experience in government, and then we will strengthen partnerships between government, private sector, and the rest. So I'll start with my first open question in this section. Targeted at no particular sector and no one, so please feel free to give any response from your sector and your experience. And the first question is, from your vantage point, whether inside government, supporting it, or holding it accountable, what is the single biggest reason why you feel reforms stall in Nigeria? From your vantage point, whether you're in government, you're in CSO, in the private sector, what is that single biggest reason that you feel is why reforms stall in Nigeria? Yes, Mr. Siaka, please.
Hello,
please,
everyone.
Sorry, pardon me. When you're speaking, kindly introduce yourself, your name, designation, and organization. And I'll go first. Apologies. My name is Choma Njoku, Director of Programs at the Aig-Imoukhuede Foundation. Please go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Siaka Salami, and I work with Nigerian Revenue Service and as Stand Director. For me, one, I think the biggest reason why reforms stall for me is lack of clarity. It seems like as leadership is changing, every leadership wants to come and make an impression, and they feel like what they should do is just to change something. Sometimes it's not about change, it's about just improvement. So you don't necessarily have to change a system that is working. Maybe some little tweaks here, listening to people that have done this for a long time. So and then what happens is that there is this kind of gap. The leadership is coming with these big, bold ideas, and then the people that should run with these ideas are lost. They don't know why. They don't know what are the benefits, what are the changes that this big reform is going to improve in the system. So there has to be that clarity. These are the challenges, these are the problems, and this reform, this change is going to impact positively both to the process and the people, because you can't do change in the process and leave the people behind. So that clarity and that connect, I think that's for me is the biggest challenge.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salami. Anybody else? Yes, please.
Okay, I think I agree with what he has just said. Sorry, I am Aig-Imoukhuede Wangozi, Head of Operations, Servicom Office. So I think I believe in what he has just said, because to me, reform is not just about rebuilding institutions. It's about gaining the trust of the people. And again, we have to be resilient to shocks, because some reforms comes with a lot of shock to those that are supposed to benefit from it. And it must also, one reason why it has also failed is because we don't actually measure the impact of reform. Because when we measure the impact, I believe we'll be able to find out if we're actually succeeding or if we need to change gears. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adedoyin Bosiola. I work with NUPRC, and I would say from my perspective and in my own practical experience, I would say one key thing is where there is no ownership and where there is no process that enables people to follow through till the end of that particular reform. So what happens eventually is you see, if there's a transition, like Siaka mentioned, there will be no continuity because no one is owning that particular reform. That eventually leads to a fragmented, should I say accomplishment, or a fragmented way around that particular reform. Yeah, thank you.
Pamsek, please go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Camille Shoretire, PS Labour. Reforms is a combination of all that have been said. If you want reform to outlive the people that introduce it, it should be institution-driven, institutionalized. If you want clarity, it is when it remains with the institution that clarity over time will be given as more people want to get involved. And that is it. And then the objectives can be pursued to the letter.
Can I just add?
I should just stop there. Thank you.
Please, let me just add. My name is Engineer Uchechi Dosonwa, Nigerian Airspace Management Agency, Deputy General Manager. I head the Electronic Communications Department. One other reason why reforms stall is because there's really no reform that is domiciled in a unit. Assuming you want to bring a reform to your organization, it's really not domiciled in a unit. And we are still at this.
The mission of the Blavatnik School of Government at the University of Oxford is to create a world that is better led, better served,
Kingdom mentality
and better governed.
So until we do it,
we're deeply committed to realising this vision. And we are delighted to partner with the Aig-Imoukhuede Foundation, because we know that you share our deep commitment.
His Excellency, Professor
so we
Yemi
must
Badjo,
do a mindset.
immediate
I don't know how we're going to do
Vice
that,
President
but I know we can.
of the Federal
We're here for
Republic of
solutions.
Nigeria, I would
where
like to
I see
welcome
collaboration
you
as critical
to what we
and
term
important.
the
And
closing
it doesn't matter
ceremony
who shines.
of
The
the
star should just shine.
Aig-Imoukhuede Public
Thank you.
Leaders Program.
Thank you very much. So
This
let's
case-
just take Mr. Ahmad, and then we'll come to you, sir.
Hi, my name is Oluwaseyi Ahmed. I work with Triumph Limited as an innovation manager. I think one of the biggest reasons from my experience that reforms stall is reforms are created as, or the measurement of the impact of the reforms is from the activity perspective rather than the outcome. So you paper reforms, you paper policies, you push them out there, and then individuals, departments that are supposed to own the outcomes of those, of the implementation of those reforms, begin to publicize the activities that they put in place in order to implement those reforms, rather than stating the exact impact that the implementation of those reforms have made. So, yeah.
Thank you. Please go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ifeanyi Okereke. I work with the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation. I'm actually the Deputy Director in charge overseeing ICT department. So I think all the conversations around the reason why reform stall, I agree with them clearly. But I think from my personal experience that one of the reasons why reform fails is because sometimes they are not situated within the confines of what I would call a national plan. They are not mainstreamed into maybe a strategic plan of maybe the ministry or MDA or organizations. For instance, there's a project, the project I began, or we began in my place, it was at twilight of the Buhari administration. And the Minister of Information then, Lai Mohammed, made a commitment that Nigeria was going to establish a UNESCO International Media and Information Literacy Institute. And at that time, we made that pronunciation. They have just about 2 or less months to go. And we who were driving that felt, well, government has eaten something. I mean, you have eaten the capsule. So, I mean, you have committed Nigeria. Okay, so, and our thinking was that, look, because of what it stands to benefit, it will actually outlive the party and look at the broader national objective. This is something that can fly. So, if we institute reforms looking at the overall national interest, just like you talked about, the outcome, general outcome, and also within the established mandate of the ministry, just like which you also said, within the structures. I think that way, with consistent work, we get things, done. Thank you. That's my thought for now.
We'll take one final response and then we'll go to the next question. Please, ma'am.
My name is Dr. Mariam Ismaila Keshinro. I am PS Youth Development. So why do reforms fail? Because there's no alignment. You have to have alignment between the political alignment, economic alignment, and the institutions themselves, so that you have plans for sustainability. Even when there's change of government or administration, that reform will continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Very solid responses. And I will try and just give a bit of the snippets what I heard. Collaboration is a strength, not a weakness. So let's collaborate more. Clarity is important, and that feeds into many of the other responses about being institutional in what you're doing. Don't focus on activities, be more outcome-oriented and communicate that effectively. Then the very important parts, political and economic alignment, as well as the national vision, should tie into whatever we're planning within different agencies. And this leads us directly to the next question, which is, from your experience, think of a reform effort that you have witnessed or been a part of that made real progress. We have shared the negative side, now the positive side. What conditions made those reforms possible? This again, yes. Khadija, please go ahead. Your name, your designation, and your organization.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Khadija Akeshala. I handle subnational legislative reforms for the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. And funny enough, the reform example I have was actually from my experience at the Aig-Imoukhuede Foundation. While I was working with the Aig-Imoukhuede Foundation, I think one of the most impactful reform effort that I've experienced so far has been the civil service digitalization project. And it made significant progress, and what contributed to it, which we then answer the question of what stalls it, was the political will. At least I experienced the strong will that Dr. Folashade Yemi Esan had, and as a result, everyone had to cooperate because the leader gave them no other choice. We had an experience where a lot of people were not, a system has been deployed, people were not using it, they were still using paper, and we were trying to train people, they were not available in their offices. And then one day Mama said, no physical file is coming to my table. Everything has to come through the ECM platform. And people were like, oh, this is urgent. She said, go through ECM and flag it as urgent. And then we saw the department that we were initially trying to fix appointments with suddenly calling us that you've not trained me on this, you've not trained me on that. Mama said my file cannot be attended to. So I think that from us as somebody that has worked on the other side of supporting government but not being in government, the biggest driver of whether a reform will work or not is whether the political will is there or not. You can't go far without political will, no matter how grand the strategy is or how beautiful the implementation plan is. If the people in the offices are not interested, there's nothing you can do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fatima, you can go next and then we'll come to you.
Thank you very much. My name is Fatima Ango. I head the Learning and Development in Central Bank of Nigeria. I would like to reference our upgrading of the performance management system as a change. In addition to having the political will, the management was very, very on top of things, backing the reform and everything. But then you have to have buy-in from the people that are going to use it. You have to have, apart from collaboration, yes, the HR collaborated with stakeholder departments that are involved in getting this thing done. You have to move from collaboration to allyship. You have to make friends with people who you ordinarily wouldn't even relate with. And across, we have central banks in 37 branches, 37 states of the Federation, and the head office, and Lagos, and different parts. So it's not just HR driving this. So in every location, there are champions who we have identified, have trained, and have given the mandate to push this in their individual locations. So while there's the leadership buy-in, this thing has to happen. Well, you can take a donkey to the river, but you can't force them to drink. But then if you have this allyship across board, they will make it happen as well.
Thank you. Mr. Wale, and then I'll come to you.
Good afternoon. My name is Wale Onosoya. I'm CEO of Coronation Group Limited. So my example, I don't have a single example. I have a general framework I'd like to use. And this is based on multiple examples over time. I think, one, everything you've said comes into what I'm about to say. And not to, to downplay any of the points that have been made, but those seem to rely on certain individuals being in that position at a certain point in time. And if those individuals are removed, then the thing will fail. So if you want to have any reform of impact, you are going to have to resource it properly. Resourcing it will mean, number one, at the very beginning, you have a strategy. Like someone said earlier, you have an outcome you are trying to agree on. Now, in reality, when you have a lot of stakeholders in the reform, especially when some people are going to be adversely impacted, let's face it, okay, you are never going to have buy-in of everybody. So, number one, what you need to have is a well-articulated strategy. This is what we are trying to do. These are the actions we need to take, and they will lead to this outcome. The next thing then is to assign responsibilities. Those responsibilities that you assign are not to names, they are not to human beings, they are to roles. Okay. They are to roles. So that means that if someone moves out of that role and another person fills it, that person's JD on day one states the things that they need to achieve. The next thing then is that you have to align those tasks, those responsibilities, to the individual KPIs of that person. If what you are supposed to do, for example, is to get people to use a digitized system, and that you need to have 50% usage by so and so date, and someone has that as their KPI, that flows into the appraisal at the end of the period. So it doesn't matter if the person that came up with this reform initiative was 3 leaders ago that resigned or moved on to other things. As long as this remains the strategy of record, as long as these things have been broken into tasks, right, that feed into the KPIs of individuals, that is what it is. Then the other key resource you need, it could be someone or a team of people internal. If you're an external group, is a project management office, and then a regular scheduled meeting where we'll sit around the table like this and you say, Mr. A, by so and so date you were supposed to have done ABC. Why haven't you done it? And then on and on like that, so that you keep on the momentum. So even if everybody today that were part of the initial version of the reform, even if they've rotated out of the organization, another group of people are there, they have those tasks assigned to them. There is somebody holding those people accountable, such that the only thing that will derail this from a technical standpoint is if a new leader comes and says, we're scrapping that strategy and we're having a new one. And these are the activities for this new strategy. So that's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I come to you, I want to ask a follow-on question to Mr. Wale. And I'm asking this question based off what Khadija mentioned, yes, and the experiences we've had in ATM and all of that.
Yes.
And I'll use your scenario for the question. So say every part of your playbook was implemented.
Correct.
The tasks were assigned to roles,
yes,
not to people.
Correct.
There's bi-weekly meeting being held.
Yes.
People are being held accountable. There's a full-on strategy.
Correct.
And then another leader comes and says, I don't want to have your meetings every 2 weeks. I'm too busy for that.
Okay, that's a very good thing.
And
so
that then leads to the political will and the allyship. People have changed in the department. Leader also has changed, and the new person says, I don't want to have two weekly meetings. I just want you to get stuff done. But then that part of checking if it is being done has been removed. What then happens?
Okay, so one thing. So that new leader that comes in, they may have a different style, no problem. Has that leader been authorized to change the strategy, and has that leader changed the strategy? Assuming the leader has not changed the strategy, and if there's a proper system in place all the way to the top, then that leader is being held responsible for a certain outcome. So that leader is by their new style, and that style may work, by the way. But if that leader is a responsible leader, which I would expect they are, if they see that they are not meeting their deliverables, okay, according to a certain time, then they'll have to change. Otherwise, then they'll have to go to their boss and say, look, I don't believe in this strategy. Let's have a new strategy. Let's resource it accordingly and let's proceed.
Again, not about activities, about outcomes.
Correct.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Uchechi Ekejuba. I work for NUPRC, in charge of performance management. If I had answered the first question, I would have said leadership priorities. What he just said now is similar to what's going on in my organization. So the question is, what have you witnessed? Similar to what the earlier speakers have said, we're also doing a transformation program right now, and the first thing that was done was to convert our manual to paper. And the chief executive just gave the ICT 60 days. And of course, there was an incentive: if you do it, you get this. And in 60 days, they delivered. So 2 things: the priority of the chief executive, and if your present condition is uncomfortable. People were already complaining, I submit something, but it takes 3 days, 7 days, and they'll complain about subjective appraisal system. So the idea is that if we do this, so the staff were motivated, they were happy. If you do this, you will not waste, if the people from the field offices that have to send emails, have to dispatch things, take 7 days, they were willing. So you mean I can just send this? Because sometimes you need signatories. So everything is provided there, internal documentation, even to external clients, the provision is there. For things that are private, they have restricted record, so it's provided there. So the idea was that apart from the priority of the leader, the staff themselves are more comfortable because they're not longer, the tracks how long something is on your table. There's a default. If it's 4 days, you're overdue. So that's a way of also tracking your performance appraisal for some, some tasks. So you have to be uncomfortable first, and then the priority of the leader, those two things.
Yes, please go ahead.
It doesn't drop off. Just like she's just said, that it's not just, there are two key things I can pick out of what both of them said. Leadership, that is leadership commitment, and the people getting tired of the old system. For example, we used to have this reform in PENCOM, the pension reform. It has been there for over 15 years, and it has been in the law for over 15 years. And a lot of people are already opting out. They want to opt out of that contributory pension scheme. They feel that it is just like it's just changing them compared to the defined benefit scheme. And we have a leader that just came up there, and she discovered that it was in the law, and she enforced it. That everybody that is leaving the service is entitled to gratuity. It has always been in the law, but nobody thought about implementing it until she came in. Then, and I suppose she leveraged on the fact that people were already trying to opt out of the old system. So I think apart from leadership, when you discover that people are not interested in that reform, or they are not satisfied with it, you have to do something before it gets out of control. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And we'll move to our third question. Okay, yes, Ma, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mrs. Aig-Imoukhuede, PAMSEC, Ministry of Petroleum Resources. I think what I'll add to what has been said is when a new leader comes in and you want to ensure that the policy on ground is sustained, there has to be deliberate mandate. I take my cue from the former head of Civil Service of the Federation, Mrs. Folashade. She insisted on this paperless reform, but when Mrs. Didi came in, she took over. But it was because there was a deliberate effort to ensure sustainability. In fact, for every ministry, you are given a matching order. So it's not like, just don't worry, it's not like you come and you say, I don't want to. There is nothing like I don't want to. So that has sustained the tempo, and everybody is trying to achieve that same objective.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I would not have I've been struggling within myself whether it is actually right to say what I'm going to say, but but I just felt I need to, because I see PAMSEX and I see all other persons here, and the concern is about the current example that we are using, the digitization process. I come from the ministry, the core ministry. Those who work in the core ministries will understand that there's a challenge. Yes, it is easy to make policy statements, and sometimes you would think it's actually working, but when you do a review, an appraisal, of what is happening at the background, you'll find out that yes, the interest is there, but the wherewithal is not there. What it would take to get those things done is not there. For instance, in some of the ministries, I happen to head the ICT in my ministry. We have all the things the whole ideas has been done. On paper, we have gone paperless. Okay, but on the ground, we don't have anything. Not because we can't, because the funds are not there. The funds are not there. And when you interrogate this, you find out that it also boils down to the issue of the leadership. We're talking about a large population of workers, and the structure is a bit not like you see in the private sector. Thank you
very much. So from our experiences, yes.
Thank you. I agree there are issues. It's not, usually when you have new policies, they come with challenges. Yes, there are issues with some of these policies, but you don't throw the baby and the bathwater away. Take the cashless policy, for instance. We have not gotten to where we are. But because we have not gotten there and we are experiencing issues, we should just throw everything away. With time, it will be better. There are other policies that if they have been given the chance, it would have survived the test of time. Thank you.
For the sake of time, we'll just take 2 more quick contributions. PAMSEC and then Mr. Siaka.
All right, thank you very much. I'll join my PAMSEC to say money affects everything. But when money comes, are you ready to go? Is the next thing we need to challenge ourselves with. Yeah, money is not there, but the paper preparation, what we needed to do, is ready. But when the money comes, even if you are out of your desk, is the next person going to continue now that money has come? Then I want to touch briefly on 2 things that were raised, since they are also some of the problems. The first about departments not talking to themselves in an organization. That is an issue of leadership. The head of departments can be removed if you refuse to fall in line in terms of making sure that the organizational goals are achieved through collaboration. So I would urge those that work in such organizations, make sure your voices are heard at the highest level. That departments are not talking to themselves. And that is why we are unable to move in a particular direction or get it. And the second one, politicians are the ones making political commitments. A minister says we are going to establish a UNESCO center or something like that. As soon as that is done, it's a policy statement. Then those that are working in such a ministry, we go to work to firm up the paper, get the necessary approval. If it has to go into a policy guide or policy document, it comes out. If it needs FEC approval, it's taken there so that the next budgeting cycle, that center can be established through funding from government allocation, and then we go on with it. So politicians will always make political statements. It's those that work with them. They have to go to work to translate these statements into policy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Just briefly, what I've seen that worked is systems thinking. When a leader, the whole ecosystem, and then is able to sequence accordingly. Now, at this point, I'm just saying that there is a shortage of finance, but there are low-hanging fruits that you don't need finance to deal with. Then it's the people we need to buy in. We need to get the people's buy-in. There are things that can be done even within the constraints. So just like she said, you don't throw away the baby with the bad water, but system thinking and adequate thinking. I think that's what I've seen that's worked for reform in my own picture.
Thank you for bringing us back to solutions. Systems thinking. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Please, final hand up, please. We are still in section 1.
I will still say the same thing, I think. I don't know how many of us have done or read this, done the course that says, who moved my cheese? So one of the most difficult things to do is change. People are afraid of change. And we have to embrace that culture of changing the behavioral mindset. I know we say that it's difficult, but it is doable. For instance, I know, yes, maybe within the MDAs, you have difficulties getting the departments together. But the change starts from the leadership, from the minister's office to the permanent secretary's office. If they see you as you are working in synergy, believe me, that you will throw them in together. They know in my ministry, I say liars on this and bring out whatever it is there. I don't want to be pushing paper around. And they do it. And we're having a smooth time. It was bumpy initially because every department will say, oh, this one is encroaching into my own. What is your own? We're all working for the government. We're in this ship together. If it sinks, we all sink together. So I think we need to make deliberate efforts to make sure that there's alignment. I'm still coming back to alignment between the whatever policy statement the minister, the honorable ministers or the political class are making, together with the implementers, that is the ministry, the MDAs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. That was number 2 was exhaustively discussed. We'll go to our third question. We'll look at accountability. And we're asking, where does accountability sit when reforms fail? Is it with individuals, is it with institutions, or with the general whole of government system? Because, you know, we have a thing of pointing fingers. Those we call political class will say it's not us, it's the bureaucrats. And you will say it's not us, it's politicians. We say it's not us, it's Nigeria. Nigeria will say it's not us, it's government. So who exactly do we hold accountable when these policies fail? And we'll ask if there are any media people in the house. They can go first, and then others can come in. Yes, please. Please hand him the mic, please. Sir, there's a mic for you.
All right, thank you.
Start with your name, your designation, and then your organization.
Okay, my name is James A. Major. I work with This Day. Yeah, so I think when reforms fail, from my own thinking, I think both individual and institution should be made to account. Okay, and one of the examples that come to mind is this lingering issue with the police. When you walk into any police station, for instance, you see it written there that, for instance, bail is free. You know, deliberately, you see operations whereby police will just go and sweep a street, even if you show them your ID card, they will say you get to the police station before they can even answer you, even when you have the ID card there. What is behind all those things is just for them to collect money. Where would the money come from? It is, they will say, if you say you don't have money to pay yourself, they will say, call somebody to come and bail you. Okay, in that instance now, we know that there is a policy on ground that bail should be free, but yet they are still collecting, they are still charging for bail in the police station. Okay, who should we hold accountable? Is it not the person doing it and reported every day that police is still collecting bail charges? What have they done? So from this perspective, as I think, because when you drag a policeman, you are also dragging the institution. So I think when reforms fail, when policies fail, those that refuse to implement it and those that, you know, institute it, they should account for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Nkiruka Jones-Nebo, Permanent Secretary, Career Management Office, the head of service. Yes, accountability. I believe it's a whole of government. Nobody can be excluded. Come to think of it, the services of the government, the people are beneficiaries. And the people also are the ones that pay tax with which government takes salary. So it's like a two-way traffic. We are all there for each other. Now, when you come into government offices, you would realize that from the top echelon down to the lowest, everybody ought to be accountable. There should be, there are mechanisms for checks and balances. There is nothing like sometimes I tell officers that work with me that I hope you know that if I don't do well, you too didn't do well. You can't say it's just me. We are in it together. So I'm doing well, we're doing well. You're doing well, I'm doing well. So it's together that we have to work. But in all of this, there should be a degree of synergy. There should be the working together with a goal, at the back of our minds. We should understand our mandate. We should understand the service we want to deliver. We should understand that if we do have reforms, just like my colleagues had already mentioned, there should be alignment. There should be understanding, clear picture of what we want to achieve. So when we do understand that, then people who have done the wrong thing, there should be consequences. People who have done the right thing and have done well, there should also be rewards. There should also be ways, can be just little things. I want to give an example, like there was a time I was having issues with my staff not coming early to work. So I decided that if you come to work before 8 or at 8, then you will get some perks. And it was like magic. The next day, everybody, they were jumping upon each other to be the first to write their names. I didn't tell them to write their names, so someone appointed himself to be the one to police the writing of names, and also appointed himself to be the ones to rule it when it's 8 o'clock. And with their eyes flickering like this, that you came 8:01, so you better write after the line. So I can imagine if we have the small perks, they may not even be a big deal, something that would just make them want to do it. So accountability, you'll see that the people on coordinate levels would also hold each other accountable. People on higher levels will also hold, and again, people at high echelons should also not be seen as sacred cows. They should also be held responsible or accountable for what they have done wrong, so that it will act as a deterrence and people would not want to do the wrong thing. So yes, we should all work together and we should be each other's, a police, if you like. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. For section 3, we'll be able to take more. We really overdid our time in section 1. So I would introduce my colleague, Godwin Ochube. He would take about 10 minutes to introduce our draft reform playbook, like I mentioned in the beginning. And it sort of touches on the things we have identified, the challenges, the solutions, some of which we have mentioned here, just to give us a taste of what we are working on and also get your feedback on how workable it is within the government space. So Godwin, 10 minutes.
Let's give a live example. All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Chairman. I will just walk you through the reform playbook. And quite a lot of discussions here. A lot of them we already captured in the playbook. For example, the time we were teasing out some of the reasons why reform failed. Those are things that our research we are able to bring out, and even more of that. So it's a very big document. I think we have a summary that will be displayed or shared later via soft copy and the rest. So it's basically chapter 1 to 3 of it explain why reform failed in Nigeria. Like I said, quite a lot of the points have been raised here. Political will, it's part of them. Favoritism, patronage, and all of it are all part of it. We also review 60 years of reform history, the success and failure, why some reform failed and why some succeeded. We also highlighted that in the reform playbook as well, which also led us to introducing the multiple fathom theory, which talks about the conflict between the political and the institutional realities, where we have institutional goals, and then people have their different motives and political affiliations, different from the institutional goal of a particular ministry. So that's what chapter 1 and 3 talks about in the reform playbook, just putting context into reform Sussex. Moving into design reform, which is chapter 4 and 6, we introduce quite some diagnostic tools to understand. One of them is problem-driven iterative adaptation, PDIA, design thinking. Those are diagnostic tools to quite understand root causes and not just symptoms of why reform fails and all of it. We talked also about stakeholder mapping and co-creation for ownership. Reform doesn't just, it's not at the top level. People need to own it before it succeeds. And also the application of strategic sequencing, where we talk about quick wins, long-term goals, and all of it. So the goal is just to break all of them down in a way that you can measure it and not just a haphazard process and the rest. So good designs bring about the problem-driven and identify the problem, look at the root cause, and then inclusiveness, as well as the strategy to address them. Those are what the chapter 4 and 6 talked about. Chapter 7 and 11, which is the big part of it, have to talk about the implementing reform, where you have to set up reform implementation teams. I think one of the people speaking about it, I think it was you who mentioned where you need to set up teams to give rules and hold people responsible for doing what and all. Ensure effective execution and course correction, how to manage resource transparently. We also introduced a framework called the Sigma framework, a OEDC and EUL framework that was introduced in the playbook. Sigma means support for improvement in governance and management framework. That's what it's all about. Also, another framework to address resistance. We talk about the quartiles model and also for communication as well. We also use the monitoring and evaluation learning as a system to track Sussex as well in terms of reform implementation. So that is it. Then chapter 12 talk about sustaining the momentum. Okay, how to maintain coalition and stakeholder support, how to prepare for risk, right? Every reform comes with risk, implementation comes with risk. How to prepare for that, how to prepare for setback, as well as political changes. A lot of us have talked about administration changes, political changes, and all of it. So we also discussed that as well in the reform playbook. And how to apply lessons that has been gotten from past reform and all of it. Then chapter 13 and 14, which have to do with learning from others, we brought in quite a lot of Nigerian success cases that we can learn from within the reform playbook. The first is the Treasury Single Account. That's a wonderful reform. The Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, the PBEC, is another one. Passport reform and quite a lot of other reform that we are successful. So we brought out why they were successful based on our research, and some of the ones that are not too successful so that they fail. So we also brought all of that out as well. We also look at African experience, some examples from Rwanda, from Kenya, from Mauritius, and all of that, which are also part of the reform playbook. I'm sure by now you'll be anticipating to look at what it is based on how rich it is sounded. Then chapter 15 and 16, we introduce some of the tools and checklists and some of the practical templates that you can use. One is stakeholder mapping, quick win scorecard. Those are practical templates that you can use to actually track those things. Monitoring and evaluation dashboard, as well as risk register, and all of master checklists and maturity model. Those are quite a lot of tools that we have introduced in it. I hope I've not exceeded my time. Then chapter 17, I'm almost done, of the playbook, talk about the long-term gain, the reform. That reform takes time. Of course, it's not something that you introduce today and you want a quick action. There are aspects you can break down where you could get quick wins and the rest. So it can take up to 10 to 20 years to begin to see the impact as well as the result and the rest. So basically, that's what the playbook is all about. It's a very rich document, and we look forward to launching it very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Godwin.
Thank you.
So thank you, Godwin, for that very summarized explanation. There's a QR code on the screen. You can scan and download the summary version of the playbook, like he said, just to understand what each chapter is about. But there are three major things that he touched on that I want to re-emphasize before we go to the next section. He mentioned sequencing and quick wins. What we commonly call low-hanging fruits. When you're doing reforms, sometimes, like you said, it can be uncomfortable. People can resist it. What are those? How can we sequence? Meaning, how can we arrange them in a way that the sweetest ones come first? That kind of get people more excited and wanting to do it. And you can get quick wins, quick benefit before you get into the bigger versions that take longer time. Where you say we don't have funding, what can we quickly do that can be a good change people can latch onto, pending when you get the bigger funding that you need? That's what he meant by sequencing. He also mentioned sustaining the momentum of implementation and how reforms don't take 2 days. It can take up to 20 years. I know during the conference yesterday morning, when our chairman was on the session, and the moderator said about how you can plant a tree, but you'll be in the shade. And he said, me, I want to be in my own shade, right? Basically, we know that you can plant a tree today and you may not be there to eat the fruit. So when you're thinking reform, don't think about what can I gain, because you may not actually be there to benefit from it. Think about what can this ministry, what can this system gain, whether I'm here or not. So that's the idea. So thank you very much again, Godwin. Thank you. So now we'll go to section 3, around building the reform ecosystem. And we have 3 questions here. The first question we'll take is, we've listened to the playbook summary that has step-by-step guide for reform success, including the right reform environment and ecosystem. Because like we know, reform doesn't take just one person or one sector, it's an ecosystem. Right, so what would it take to build that ecosystem in Nigeria? Where reform-minded leaders from across sectors can actually succeed together, and who needs to do what differently? Private sector, government, media, who needs to do what differently for that ecosystem to actually be built to push for this long-term reform that we need to get done? Anybody can go first.
Can I?
Uchechi.
Okay, I will tie it in a little. You know, the leadership is so important. I know that we tend to say everyone is responsible, but if you don't have a leader pushing it, it would fail. And I'll give an example. When I was in Nigeria College of Aviation Technology, we didn't have anything called the internet, no fiber, nothing. And I was just on level 8, I think. And I said, oh, we can have a campus-wide network. Now, you know that there's something about leadership change. Almost every 2 years, we're having a different rector so it was a good ground for it to fail. But what we did in the committee, I was secretary of the committee then, was to have a report. So when the new leader comes on board and he or she says, oh, I have an open door policy, come with ideas, and people are coming to say, oh, I did not get this, I did not get that. I was coming with, this is how far we've gone, and this is what we can do. And each of those leaders pushed it. So to build an ecosystem, the leaders must be willing to disappear. I don't know how to put it. It wouldn't be a thing of, I started it, it's me, my name is on it. So to build that ecosystem, the
public sector angle, a lot of things that get done or